Here we are, working through another question on the Certified Q&A for the Google Cloud Platform Associate Cloud Engineer. It's very important to the process of understanding Google Cloud and passing the certification exam that you go through the question and attempt answering it yourself first. So pause the video, work through the question. We'll catch up in just a little while and I'll show you how I do it. In this scenario, your project has all its compute engine resources in the Europe West 1 region. You want to set Europe West 1 as a default region for GCloud commands. What should you do? A. Use Cloud Shell instead of the command line interface of a device. Launch Cloud Shell after you navigate to a resource in the Europe West 1 region. The Europe West 1 region will automatically become the default region. Option B. Use GCloud config set compute region Europe West 1 to set the default region for future GCloud commands. Use GCloud config set compute zone Europe West 1 to set the default region for future GCloud commands. D. Create a VPN from on-premises to a subnet in Europe West 1 and use that connection when executing GCloud commands. The question is very straightforward. You just have to set the default region. The rest about Europe West 1, it is irrelevant to finding out the correct answer. Let's consider each of the options now. An option we can quickly eliminate would be option C. The option says to set the compute zone when clearly the requirement says you want to set the default region. Also, a naming convention like Europe West 1 without ending in ABC indicates as a region and not a zone. So it's easy to eliminate option C, and we can now work with the remaining three. Option A, use Cloud Shell instead of the command line interface of a device. Launch Cloud Shell after you navigate to a resource in the Europe West 1 region. The Europe West 1 region will be automatically the default region. Now, what exactly is Cloud Shell? Let's dive a little deeper and find out what it is and how it works. The way you launch Cloud Shell is to go into your Cloud Console, and on the top right, there will be a small icon that indicates a terminal. Click that, and in the browser itself, it is going to open up a terminal session. Now, this is very convenient because you don't have to use GCloud from your machine terminal. All you need is a browser, and you don't need to establish an SSH connection. All of that is taken care of for you automatically. How does Cloud Shell work? Cloud Shell works on a per user basis. So every user gets an instance of Cloud Shell, and that becomes a way for you to reach into multiple projects. You can go access the resources of multiple projects sitting from one Cloud Shell. So it's possible to specify a project ID when you want to access a resource, or you can set a default project as part of the Cloud Shell configuration. It is not region specific. Cloud Shell is available to you globally. A few more things about Cloud Shell. There is about 5 GB of persistent storage within Cloud Shell. A small instance of a G1 small instance VM is provisioned for you. It is active while there is an ongoing session, and when the session is inactive for a certain period of time, the instance is terminated. But the storage is persistent, which means that when you establish the session again, you get back the original Cloud Shell with the same files that you had before. This Cloud Shell is globally distributed across regions, and the VM will be created in an instance that will be in a region that is the closest, or even if it is not the closest when it starts off, towards the end, it will be migrated to a region that is closer. So having understood what Cloud Shell is and how it is used, we can eliminate this option on various grounds. One, what does it mean to say navigate to a resource? How do you navigate to a machine on in say what do you call it, in IO. Maybe that's possible. How do you navigate to a load balancer? How do you navigate to some of the other user instances? The whole idea of navigating to resource does not necessarily make sense. Um, but even then, in this particular case, since it is a compute engine instance, you can log into that machine. But let's say we now log into a machine in Europe West 1 and our default region becomes Europe West 1. What if we now log into another machine or we navigate to a resource in, say, Europe East 1? Does the default region automatically get reset? That wouldn't be a good experience. We kind of want our settings to be consistent while we use it. So the premise of navigating to a resource and then automatically changing the default region does not work well, and it is wrong. In option D, they're asking us to create a VPN from on-premises to the subnet in Europe West 1. And when you use that, it says the GCloud commands will automatically have the default region of Europe West 1. Assume this even works, right? What if I don't have an on-prem? All I have is, say, a Chromebook, and all I have is a browser, and I'm trying to log into Google Cloud Console. There is no concept of specifically of an on-prem there, and then having to establish a connection via the VPN. What if I'm using Cloud Shell only via the Google Cloud Console? And of course, that particular instance could be anywhere in any region. Thirdly, even if this worked, it doesn't work, but even if it did, just setting up a new VPN to get the default region seems roundabout and excessive. We need to have an easier way, and there is. For now, though, we can eliminate this option. And in this case, what we've done is we've just thought of what will be the use cases and what about the edge cases for not just the people who have on-prem. You also have to think about what are the people who don't have on-prem or a significant on-prem setting, just a Chromebook. How does it work for them? And just applying that specific use case allows us to eliminate this option. Now that we've eliminated the others, the right one would be option B, which is to set the default region using GCloud config set compute region and give the region name. Let's try that and see if it actually works. So first, we've set GCloud config set compute region Europe West 1 in our Google Cloud Console. And now when we do a listing, it says the region is Europe West 1. So using that command, we have been able to set the default region. What are the key learnings from this? Cloud Shell is per user and is an interface into a project or multiple projects. It is not region or zone specific and could get migrated. It is provided for you free by Google Cloud, and you don't have to provision it yourself. Click a button and it automatically appears in your browser. The way to set default configurations like region are done using the GCloud config command. To get some hands-on, I would suggest you do a couple of labs using the GCloud command. I shall leave you with a few references. If you thought that content was great, you absolutely must check out all our new upcoming content. So subscribe right away.